حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ما بعد. We've probably heard this hadith before. It's a very famous one. It's narrated in Bukhari, in Muslim, and many other books. The Prophet is recorded to have said, "Ala kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyati," which translates to, some translate it as guardian, most people shepherd, that each and every one of you is a shepherd, and that all of you are responsible for your flock. And I wanted to talk about what does that really mean? That every person is a shepherd, and that everyone has a flock that they're responsible for. Because regardless of what scenario we're in or what situation, there are people that look up to us. There are people that come to us for help, come to us for advice. Whether you're a father or a mother and you have children, whether you're a close friend of someone who comes to you for help, whether you're an older brother or sister, or you have cousins or nieces that are younger than you, even people older than you can come to you and look up to you and ask you for things, and come to you when they need help with their problems. And in that respect, we are all shepherds, and we all have a flock that we're responsible for. So how do we be responsible shepherds? That's what I want to talk about today. So this was an advice that I was given by Ustad Hassan Alwan. I took a class of his in Irvine, and it was just very beautiful. So I want to retell this scenario. As I'm telling it, I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of everyone involved. Okay, so we're going to take ourselves back to our high school days. Okay, we're in class and we're taking a very difficult exam. Let's say it's a math exam, and you go in and you take the test. And you're very unsure about yourself. You don't know if you're going to do well. You're very nervous. You take the test. You go check your grade online that night, and you got a B. Okay, my dad's not going to be happy, but at least I got a B, right? So you walk into school the next day, ready to brag to your friends. Oh, I got a B on the test. You're one of those guys. And when you walk into class, you notice that your best friend isn't sitting in their normal seat. And that's strange, because they always sit next to you. So you look around the class and you notice that your best friend is in the back of the room. So you, being a good friend, you're going to walk in and you're going to see what's happening to them, right? So you walk up to your friend, and as you get closer, you notice that they're crying. They're crying and asking maybe why they're in the back of the room. They're just, tears are flowing from their cheeks. And you're a good friend. So what are you going to do? You're going to go up to your friend, you're going to ask them what's wrong, right? Hopefully it's not that exam, because that was yesterday. So you walk up to your friend and you ask them, what's going on, and they start to explain, that test we had yesterday, I did terrible. I bombed it. I tanked it. I got an F. There's nothing I can do. I went and calculated my grade, and I'm going to fail this course. If I get an F here, I have to repeat senior year. I'm going to lose my scholarship. I'm not going to go to college. And he or she just starts naming all the problems in the world to you. and they're just crying, right? Right in front of you. You being a good friend, what do? You give them words of encouragement, right? You give them potential solutions. Like, well, we didn't get the exam back yet. Maybe there's a mistake on it. Maybe we can go talk to the professor. Maybe we can get some extra credit somehow. I'll help you. Maybe we can do this, that. You start getting anything you can. And eventually you're naming solution after solution, and then your friend just gets upset. And they just start yelling at you. No, you don't get it. I messed up. The night before, I went to that party. I did some terrible things I shouldn't have done. I forgot everything. I blew off studying. I didn't do anything. I deserved it. I got exactly what I deserved. I messed up. And now they're crying even harder. So they're there in front of you, hating themselves, and saying to you all of their problems and why they're struggling with everything. What do? Now you know it's their fault. It's completely their fault. Does that change the way you respond to them? No, it doesn't. Because you're a good friend. It doesn't matter what they've done. It's your job to empower and uplift. You don't accept the thing that they did, but you don't hold them accountable for making one mistake. It's not habitual, it's one thing. So you forgive them, right? And you empower and you uplift them and give them words of encouragement, because that's what they need to hear at that moment, right? Now imagine a third mutual friend of yours. He walks in, he or she, and they walk up and they see, whoa, they're not sitting in their same seats. Where are they? Looks in the back of the room, sees one of you crying, or your friend crying. Walks up, asks what's going on, hears the same story, and then your mutual friend starts going off on them. I can't believe you went to that party. I helped you study. I made flashcards for you. You came over to my house, I helped you study, and you weren't paying attention. This always happens. Unless you do something different, you're never going to improve. You don't deserve that scholarship. And they just start going off on your friend. And now they're crying even harder. Okay, what do? Put yourself in the situation, right? What is your intention by saying all those words of encouragement? It's your friend, right? You don't want them to feel bad. You want them to feel better. And you want them to improve. You want them to do better in their life, right? So you're giving them words of encouragement. You're not accepting what they did, but you're giving them words of encouragement because you want them to be better and not repeat their mistake. Now your mutual friend was harsh and scolding. What was their intention? The same thing, right? Think about it. They don't want their friend to repeat that mistake. So that's whatever method they think being hard to them is what they need, that encouragement to get over that. So they're being harsh and being scolding to them because they think that these are the words they need to never repeat that mistake again. They have the same intention. You guys understand? Okay, now put yourselves in the shoes of your crying friend. Which voice would you rather hear? You would rather be encouraged and uplifted, right? You don't need to be told that you're failing. No one likes to be told that they're a mess up, that they're a failure, right? No one likes to be told that. And it's only so much that they hear it constantly that they'll start to rebel. No one wants to hear that. You recognize that if you are in that situation, you want your friends to be uplifting and encouraging. But now think about it. Before your friend walked in the room to scold them, before you walk in the room to encourage them, and when your friend was sitting there in the back of the room crying, which voice were they talking to themselves with? Second voice, the harsh voice, the scolding voice, right? Whenever we mess up, how do we talk to ourselves? I can't believe you did that. What's wrong with you? Like, you're never going to get in. Those are the words we tell ourselves inside our heads, right? We are our own enemy, right? We're the ones scolding ourselves for messing up inside of our own heads. That's the psychology of guilt, right? Because you're telling yourselves that you should be better. That's what guilt is. You feel bad for something because you're scolding yourself. And what do we all recognize? That the voice that we need to be hearing is what? One that is encouraging and uplifting. That is the job of a shepherd. That is the job of someone who has people that he looks over. Because when they mess up, you have to remember, how are they talking to themselves? Very harshly. And how do they need to be talked to in order to grow out of the experience? Mercifully. They need to be talked to with words of encouragement and upliftment. With that in mind, I want to bring up some stories from the Sunnah of how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with people and how the Prophet ﷺ was that voice of encouragement. So, I want to bring up the biggest, in my own opinion, the biggest mess up in the history of Islam. The biggest thing that could have ever happened to the biggest screw up in the history of Islam. And if we put it in the right context, the biggest screw up in the history of the world. Because Islam was almost ended that day. And I argue that that's the Battle of Uhud. Why Battle of Uhud? Because on the Battle of Uhud, the Prophet, and specifically it's the archers on the Battle of Uhud. Right? Why the archers on the Battle of Uhud? So the Battle of Uhud, if you guys don't know, or if you need some refreshing, was the second encounter between the Muslims and the Quraysh. So just coming off the Battle of Badr, huge victory, right? They crushed them. And everyone thought the Muslims are invincible, there's no way they're going to lose. The Muslims were very after the Battle of Badr, that was the best day of their lives, right? Now enter the Battle of Uhud, they're outnumbered. A third of the army and the hypocrites left them. So they're there with less numbers than they expected. The Quraysh are coming. They're outnumbering them. So the Prophet tells us, 50 archers. I want you to stand watch on this hill so that people don't come around and flank us from behind. Right? And he was so strong in his words. He said, you don't move from this position until I call for you. And he, in one narration, even said, even if you see the birds eating from our dead bodies, you don't move from your position. That's how strong the Prophet was in that order. Right? That even if the Quraysh had killed all of us, and the vultures had time to circle, and they were eating from our dead bodies, you don't move. So I call for you. It's the Prophet said. But what happened? The Muslims were winning, right? The Muslims were driving back the enemy. One general, Sufyan, took his forces back. The Mujahid took his forces back. Everyone was retreating. The archers on the hill can see this on the hill. They're, oh my God, the battle's over. And they see lying there on the ground what? The spoils of war. Shiny shields, swords, chainmail. They want that wealth. They want that dunya. So what do? 40 of them leave against the command of the Prophet. 40 of them leave. Their Amir of the archers tells them, no, don't go. 40 of them leave. And what happens? Khalid ibn Walid, one of the generals on the other side, sees that the archers are leaving. He flanks them from behind. The Muslims are left in chaos. The Prophet himself was the target, so people had to surround him and guard him. And Islam was almost ended that day. The Prophet himself was injured. Some people say that he was knocked unconscious. Some reports say he was knocked unconscious, that a piece of his chainmail got lodged in his cheek, and someone had to pull it out with their teeth because they couldn't get it out any other way. That 70 of the Muslims were martyred that day, including the beloved uncle of the Prophet, Hamza. And he was mutilated, as were some of the other Sahaba. Terrible things were done to them. And on top of that, you have to keep in mind that this was after the Battle of Badr, after that huge victory. So now what does it show? Islam is vulnerable. Islam is not invincible. Right? The Quraysh are now sent a message that we can win. Now imagine, that mistake that those archers did, what they're feeling. Now imagine you're one of those archers and you have to return back to your normal life. Imagine you have to go back and now you're the neighbor of someone whose husband was killed in Uhud. Or now you have to trade in the markets with the father of a son who was martyred in Uhud. Or you have to pay your zakat to an orphan who was orphaned in Uhud. Imagine that. What sort of guilt would you be feeling? Now, how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet respond to this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and actually a good chunk or a good portion of Surah Al-Imran was revealed, Surah number 3. And the passage begins, I'll just paraphrase, and already had Allah given you victory at the Battle of Badr while you were few in number. Then fear Allah, perhaps you will be grateful. How does Allah start, talking about the Battle of Uhud? He brings up the Battle of Badr. Why? Why would that happen? Because when someone's feeling down, what do you have to do? Encourage and uplift them. You remind them of the best of what they're capable of. You judge them based off the best of what they can do, because they've only made one mistake. It's different than if it was habitual. Right? So how does the Prophet deal with this? The Muslims are commanded to forgive them. If you read the following passage of Surah Al-Imran, all of these passages talk about muttaqeen and forgiveness and rushing to the forgiveness of your Lord. And forgiveness and mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's what the rest of this passage is talking about. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to these archers. The Muslims are commanded to forgive them. Can you imagine that? There's a story of a man named Hatib ibn Battal. And he's not really well known. Pretty much the only thing we know about this, he's a Sahaba. Pretty much the only thing we know about the Sahaba is this story I'm about to tell you. He was someone who fought in Badr. He was not from the Quraysh, but he had family living in Mecca. And not much is known about his story, other than this story I'm about to tell you. So fast forward a few years after Uhud. Now the Prophet is many of the Muslims have come to Islam. They now have large numbers. They have a treaty with the Quraysh. The Quraysh breached that treaty. Now the Prophet sees this opportunity, and he's going to take the Muslims and conquer Mecca. And he wants to do it in secret. Because if the Meccans know, they will raise an army and there'll be a huge battle. But what happens? The Prophet does it in secret. They come to Mecca with 10,000 people, way outnumbering the Quraysh. There's no battle. No blood is spilled inside the house. And the Prophet walks in victorious from the city that kicked him out, that tried to murder him. He walks back in. They said that he walked in so humble. He was crying and his head was so low that it was literally, some narrations say, he was bouncing off of the animal that he was riding when he walked back into Mecca that day, or rode back into Mecca. But that was almost not the case. Hatib ibn Battal, like I said, he was not from the Quraysh. But he had family living in Mecca. And they knew he was Muslim. And he was worried that the Quraysh, when they hear that the Muslim army is coming, they're going to do something to his family. So with good intentions, trying to protect his family, he decides that he's going to write a letter to the leader of the Quraysh, Abu Sufyan, warning them about the Muslims coming. Why? So that maybe they'll protect his family. Now imagine, that glorious day of the Prophet was almost taken away if this letter had reached. So what happens? He sends this letter, he gives it to a messenger, the messenger goes. The Prophet is informed by Jibreel that there's someone's trying to send a letter. It was sent by Hatib. Jibreel tells him exactly who. The letter is given to this person. You can meet them here. So and so. It's intercepted. The Prophet sends two people. One of them was Ali ibn Abi Talib. They find the letter. It's another story of how they got the letter back. Really complicated. But anyway, they bring the letter back. And what does the Prophet do? He calls for Hatib. And he brings him in front of him. And it makes sense that Umar ibn Khattab is the one that calls him. Because Umar ibn Khattab is there. Right? So Umar, the Prophet and Hatib. And the Prophet opens the letter. And he reads from Hatib ibn Battal to Abu Sufyan, and the contents of the letter. Muhammad's army is coming, and everything, right? Now think about it. What's the point of reading that letter? Does the Prophet have any doubt that Hatib did this? He was told by Jibreel, right? What's the point of reading the letter? Because that's the justice of the process, right? That it doesn't matter what, that's the justice. He's going to read that letter even if he knows he's 100% guilty. And upon that, what does Umar ibn Khattab do, you think? He's about heard enough, right? So, and think about what Hatib's letter would have done. There might have been a battle, there might have been bloodshed, Sahaba might have been killed, so many people from both sides, right? And instead the Prophet walked in, forgave everyone, majority of them joined Islam, and it was a day of peace, and it was almost taken away. And what does Umar want to do? Take care of this traitor, right? Umar's not having any of this. What does the Prophet tell him? I'm paraphrasing. No, Umar. He was someone who fought in the battle of Badr. And perhaps because of that one good deed, Allah has forgiven him from his sins. And upon hearing that, Umar ibn Khattab starts to cry. Why would Umar start to cry? Because he was about to kill someone Prophet wanted to forgive? Because Umar himself, perhaps it's because Umar himself fought in Badr. And now he was realizing, right, that I was about to kill someone who's of equal status to me, right? And upon this was revealed to the Prophet the first ayah of Surah Al-Mumtahina. I'll recite it, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا عدوي وعدوكم أولياء تلقون إليهم بالمودة وقد كفروا بما جاءكم من الحق يخرجون الرسول وإياكم أن تؤمنوا بالله ربكم إن كنتم خرجتم جهادا في سبيلي وابتغاء مرضاتي تسرون إليهم بالمودة وأنا أعلم بما أخفيتم وما أعلنتم فَمَنْ يَتَقِ اللَّهَ وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْهُ مِنْكُمْ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. I know what you're wondering. Why did he recite some giant ayah when he paraphrased the one earlier? Because I want you to put this into context, right? Upon hearing this, and so like I've memorized a little bit of Quran, I've gotten this far, right? So Surah Mumtahina. And this is a long ayah. It's really hard for me to remember long ayahs. And upon reading the shorter ayahs, I'm like, oh, okay, I know some of the story. Oh, this is more familiar to me. It's easier for me to remember, right? The long ayahs like this, I take for granted. Oh, it's just some long generic ayah. I read you the translation. O you who have believed, do not take my enemies and your enemies as allies, extending to them affection while they have disbelieved in what has come to you of the truth. They have driven out your prophet and yourselves only because you believe in Allah, your Lord. If you have come out for struggle in my cause and seeking means to my approval, then take them not as friends. You would confide in them affection, but I am most knowing of what you have concealed and what you have declared. And whoever among you has done this has certainly strayed from the soundness of the way. A really long ayah. Basically, it's like, don't take your enemies and my enemies as friends. When I read that the first time, I was like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. I'm not going to take my enemy as a friend. Why would I ever do that? It seems very generic to me. But now that I know the context of Halawat, right? When this was revealed, in that scenario, Hatib starts to bust out crying. And now think about why. I don't know if anyone caught it. I did recite it twice. But the ayah begins, right? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. And this is concerning him. So Allah has already forgiven him. He counts him from amongst the believers. Oh, you who have believed. Don't take your enemies, and don't take my enemies and your enemies as friends. Allah says, my enemies and your enemies. You have a commonality with Allah, right? And at the end, I know exactly what you have concealed and what you have declared. Allah says, I know exactly everything, right? And whoever has done this has strayed from the straight way. He didn't say committed a sin, has done a wrong deed. It just strayed from the soundness of the way. What do we say 17 times a day? Guide us back on that straight path. I mean, when you put it in this context, how merciful is this long ayah that like I used to take for granted? And somehow that's how Allah is showing mercy to him, and Hatib starts to bust out crying, right? Because Allah is speaking to him, and through him to all of us, that is the sunnah of how we treat people. That when someone commits a sin or someone has a problem or needs some advice from us, we need to be encouraging and uplifting and remind them of the best of what they can do and judge them accordingly to the best of what they do and not that one thing that they did. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So I'll wrap up because I went over a good time. But basically, I wanted to review a little bit. What did we talk about? So we gave that story, right? That when someone screws up and when they mess up, what voice are they talking to themselves with? A voice that's very harsh and scolding. And that's the voice we talk to ourselves with whenever we mess up, and that's the root of guilt. That's why we feel guilty. Because we're telling ourselves we made a mistake and that we don't want ourselves to repeat it, but we're doing it the wrong way. So as a shepherd, as someone who has people that come to them for advice, what voice do we need to be? One that is uplifting, merciful, one that follows the sunnah of the Prophet and how he dealt with people, which was always in with peace and mercy. But it would be different if someone was habitually sinning, right? If someone was committing that sin over and over again, you have to keep in mind that when you commit a sin once, you feel guilty for it. And now we know the root of that guilt is the voice in our head, right? You feel guilty for it. But the more and more you do a sin, the less guilty you feel, right? Why? Because no one likes to be told that they're doing wrong. No one likes to be yelled at or scolded. Parents, I want you to pay attention to this, right? Because if you're constantly yelling at your son or your daughter, do this, do that, eventually they're going to rebel. Why? Because no one likes to be yelled at. No one likes to be told that they're doing something wrong. That is the exact nature of losing guilt in something. Because inside your head, what are you doing? You're telling yourself you made a mistake, you did something wrong. And you don't want to feel that way. So you stop listening to that voice. And that's why you don't feel guilty when you commit a sin anymore. Parents, we do the same thing to our children sometimes. When you constantly yell at a person, or yell at someone younger than you, a younger sibling, anything, right? You have to keep in mind that's the voice they're already talking to themselves with. That's not what they need to hear to improve. They need to be spoken to with mercy and words that are uplifting and empowering, and that's how you overcome a situation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who are righteous shepherds and who choose the best words when we deal with people. I mean, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us people who help to uplift and encourage everyone around us and those that come to us for advice. And we ask you, Allah, to make our hearts firm upon this deen, and that you reunite us with those of our friends and our families and our loved ones and anyone who's ever come to us for advice and guidance. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
لا معبود لا إله إلا الله. استقيموا واعتدلوا استووا راسكم. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. العصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله 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 أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله 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 الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Br.Rehan, excellent khutbah, excellent reminders. MashaAllah, next week there will be Qariyanus Tahami. Family night tonight will be Br.Rehan Khan. Please come and attend. Monday's Eid Salah was a huge success. Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all the organizers who on a very short notice, mashallah, produced one of the best Eids we ever had. Takbir. I'd like you to know that particular day we had complete coverage of police protection. Just so you know, not only at the Wilson Park where we prayed, but simultaneously your masjid also was completely covered by the police patrols to protect your property and protect our families. And likewise, while we were praying, there were unmarked cars and there were unmarked dressed people, police people, who were aside from the assigned police and our own security guards. So we, alhamdulillah, it went up very, very well. Tomorrow, annual family Eid Carnival from 11 to 6 on the masjid grounds right here. And please attend, bring your families. There will be food stalls and rides and so on and so forth that we have a tradition doing it every year. We need the volunteers also to set it up. Also this Sunday, day after tomorrow, a fundraiser planning meeting. A survey was sent. A lot of people answered the survey and they are becoming the volunteers and caretakers of your center now, mashallah. So they will be coming. You guys should come and join. There will be volunteers that day also. And all the input is going to be needed from the total community, how to proceed with our new center in the programs, inshallah. 9/24, September 24th, ICSB construction update, a fundraiser and a dinner. Your masjid, your new building is in a dire need of funds now. The work which has been left undone needs to be done so we can have an occupancy permit. So like we did in the past several times, we joined the hands and mashallah, over 85% of the construction is completed. Takbir. With all your help, no government from a foreign country produced a check. It's all you guys, mashallah. So likewise on the 24th, I'd like people to raise their hands how many people will come and help on the 24th, inshallah. So we all should be there, our family should be there, bring your friends and have a dinner, attend and get an update. It is a town hall meeting to know, how much money came in, how much got spent, what got done, what needs to be done, how much money is needed, and what can we do to get it done, inshallah. So come and join us. Weekend Al-Noor Islamic School started on the 3rd of this month. So continue to support it, bring your children, they can participate. Al-Noor Quran Academy, mashallah, is again inching towards the close to 100 students. So, come and join and bring your children and yourself, become students. Boxes and rice and sugar and so on and so forth are available for the needy people free of charge. Don't encourage beggars. If you find anybody, send them to the management immediately. Do not give money. It's prohibited. It's against the policy of the center. Do not give beggars money. We don't want to encourage that kind of habit. If somebody is in a dire need, we have tools available, we have funds available, we have zakat funds available to assist such people. And we do make requests to people. So we don't want people lined up here. There are some phony people sitting outside on the curb. The children are not phony, they are real. I've seen them move. But the dress code of those ladies dictates that they are doing an acting job. People have seen them. Few minutes later, they change their clothes, and some of them are driving Mercedes Benzes, at your money, at your cost. So it creates a bad image of Muslims on neighbors. So don't encourage such behavior. Buy the lunch outside. That helps you and helps the masjid. Donate generously to the general fund and the new building. Dua for sick and disease. First of all, our dear brother Kalim Farouqi, his mother, passed away. And tomorrow, Salatul Janazah at the Garden Grove Masjid for him. Secondly, there's going to be another second Salatul Janazah in the Garden Grove Masjid. So Brother Ayaz Kalimullah is here from the Garden Grove. That particular family, second family, has asked for burial assistance. So funds are needed to bury the person. And Brother Ayaz is standing at the door. Brother Ayaz, raise your hand. He's our old-time buddy. Dubol Janazah in Corona Center. There are two people who are being buried. So please, anybody who wants to donate towards the Atfeen, to the burial, please help over there. Number 3, Haline Ismaili passed away in Iran, and we'll ask our Sheikh to say the dua for them.
اللهم انصر الاسلام واعز المسلمين واعلي بذكرك الدين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الاحياء منهم والاموات انك ربي قريب مجيب سميع الدعوات. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا. اللهم اعطنا ولا تحرمنا واكرم نزلنا واكرمنا ولا تحرمنا وارحم خطتك وغضبك عنا. اللهم اشف مرضانا. اللهم اشفهم من الشافي لا شفاء الا شفاءك. شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم ارحمهم برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء. اللهم ارحمهم فانت الراحم ولا تعذبهم فانت العليم القادر. والتطبيق يا لطيف بما جرت به المقادير انك على كل شيء قدير. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه.
By the way, the flyers for tomorrow's carnival are available outside. The flyers for our fundraiser and the town hall meeting also are available outside. Jazakumullah khair.